Hello, everybody. I think we're going to call this all that are getting here for the moment, and then let those who trickle in later be confused. My name is Steve Folletti. I'm actually a first-year student in this program, and I'm here introducing Matthew and Tanya. They're actually old friends of mine. We went to Pratt together, and they are the creators, the brains behind Makers Row, which you probably all have some familiarity with, but it's a site meant to connect makers and manufacturers. So with that, here they are.
Very eloquent. Thank you. Appreciate it. So we are 2/3 of the co-founding team of Makers Row. I'm the manufacturing lead. My background is in industrial design. I went to school at Pratt. I used to be that 4-year-old who would take apart things in the household and sometimes put it back together successfully, so I knew that I was going to get into manufacturing and industrial design from a very early age. At Pratt, I studied transportation design and a number of other, like fashion design and a number of things we did, package design as well. And ultimately, I decided to do watches. I designed watches for a number of designer brands from Marc Jacobs, DKNY, a few other brands, and decided to branch off and start my own watch company, and that was called Steel Cake. So I was sourcing overseas and quickly found out that you don't get the same type of red carpet treatment that a Fossil or a Marc Jacobs might overseas, and that was really the most difficult part of owning a small business, was the manufacturing. I would order a sample, it would come to me perfect. It would be a handmade sample, and then I would order for the mass lot to be sent. And once I got that, a few months later, it would look nothing like what the sample would look like. That's when I quickly found out that I wanted to start a whole new operation, but I wanted to have much more control over the manufacturing process. So I started a new company, Brooklyn Bakery, and everything was manufactured here in New York. I got my leather from Queens, I got my hardware from upstate or in the Bronx, sometimes down south, and everything was manufactured 2 blocks away from here. So I had ultimate control over everything. I was able to oversee everything as it happened, so if there were any mistakes coming about, I was able to correct them. Within the day, they would correct everything. If I had an idea for a sample, sometimes they would be able to produce it within that day. So I fell in love with manufacturing here in the United States. The pricing was definitely comparable, and the turnaround times were ridiculous. I was able to order something, and as soon as they might be working on the last 2 or 3 pieces, they would call me, I would go to the manufacturer, pick it up, and ship it out the following day. When I was manufacturing overseas, it might take about 2 months. I remember my package was stuck in Anchorage, Alaska for over a month and a half. And I called every single day trying to figure out a way that I could get it out of customs. And I had to pay taxes on that too. So there's a number of reasons why small businesses should look domestic first as opposed to overseas. And we wanted to be able to provide that channel of discovery for small businesses, especially to find manufacturers here in the United States.
And so I actually came on board to the Brooklyn Bakery while I was at Goldman Sachs. I was working on automation projects, so basically taking legacy systems and implementing new processes. And on one of my work-life balance days, I was able to visit a factory with Matthew in Manhattan, and it completely changed my view of small businesses and American manufacturing, to be able to see the quick turnaround and the agility that small businesses had, especially compared to larger corporations, was really fascinating to me. And so I actually quit Goldman and came on as a co-owner with Matthew. And so as we started to scale and look into going into new products, it became very difficult to do so quickly because it took so long to find an American manufacturer. It was actually easier to find an overseas manufacturer than it was to find one in your local area. So we really wanted to solve that problem and in general automate the process, because it wasn't just finding it, it was also the entire supply chain management was extremely inefficient. We were dealing with over 10 suppliers just to produce a bracelet. And they all had different forms of payment and different ways of contacting them and different emails. And so it was a very inefficient process. And It was something that we really are passionate about solving for small businesses in particular. And so we wanted to do it full time. So we applied to the Brooklyn Beta Summer Camp program and was accepted. At the time we had a screenshot of what it would look like and an idea. We didn't have a fully functioning site at all. But during the program, we were able to create what you see now, and also create part of the marketplace. So we launched with 1,000 American manufacturers, and have been increasing the quality of the profiles and also reaching out to the designer communities in order to interact. When we started to think about how to make a better sourcing platform for American manufacturers, Matthew actually created a wish list of what he wanted in a sourcing platform.
Yeah, so a lot of the resources that we use in order to find manufacturers made it seem as though one factory created one product, and we knew that that wasn't true. It's always a network of manufacturers that create a product. And when that happens, when it makes it seem as though one factory creates these things, there's a ton of padding with the pricing. But we wanted to break down the manufacturing process so that people were able to, well, beginners are able to use this as a step-by-step guide to figure out where they are in the manufacturing process and who they should contact. More experienced, established small and medium-sized businesses, they usually already have a supply chain, but they might want to expand on the materials that they have, so they'll just click on that. And they'll be able to find tons of manufacturers within whatever state, let's say New York. And this is the grid view right here. So you're able to see what steps different manufacturers help you with. And they're all categorized by these steps. And this is only apparel right now. We focused on one industry of apparel. This is the list view. And you're able to read a little bit more about the manufacturer, their history, or whatever they want to share with you, as well as the phone number, location. This is the map view, which is my favorite view because you're able to see what are the hot spots. So obviously, New York has tons of manufacturers and contractors that you can consult. And let's look by the highest rated. So let's check out by Cal. So this is one of the first factories that came on to the website. And since they've been on here, like they had a ton of capacity, and within 2 months, their capacity was full, and they're hiring new labor as well as management to handle all the orders that are coming in right now for small and medium-sized businesses. And that's the first thing that we wanted to do. We wanted to prove out the model that there are small businesses looking for these manufacturers that are unsuccessful in finding them.
Yeah, and we also wanted to make the manufacturing process more human. So in general, this was a very opaque market. People were generally pretty secretive about their manufacturers and their manufacturing process. And so we wanted to make it more transparent. So what we did was create videos for the manufacturers. And so we interviewed them, and so they're able to, so in this way, designers across the country can visit, basically understand the manufacturer more rather than having to buy a plane ticket and visit them personally.
So they check out the facilities, their materials, all the machinery that they have inside, as well as their manufacturing process from the very beginning, which this factory will help you with, all the way to the end. So if you have a general concept, a napkin sketch, that's really the ideation phase, and you want to consult with people to tell you exactly what is and what isn't possible, all the way through to production where you have a product in hand and you can order up to 100, 1,000. No matter how much you want to order on Makers Row, you'll never outgrow it because we're handling orders from small businesses and students such as yourself all the way to large-scale brands. And we do have some of the largest brands in the country right now sourcing on Makers Row because it's hard for everyone to source factories within the United States.
And so as part of humanizing the process, we also wanted them to be able to explain in detail which steps of the process they help with. So they're able to, in their own words, not only broadly categorize themselves, but also go deeper and explain in depth how they help. And they're also able to say what batch size they also work within. we also launched a couple of other features to make the matching process more efficient. So we saw that many beginners were going onto Makers Row. And so what we did was allow the manufacturers to select which category they're interested in working with. So this manufacturer in particular is interested in working with all of the designers that sign up for the program or sign up for Makers Row. But some can specify if they only want to work with larger brands.
Yeah, we wanted to make the discovery process very efficient. Just because you find that manufacturer, you want to know who they specialize in working with. A number of the manufacturers that I worked with when I first started my brand, they only really worked with big businesses, but they chose to work with me because I had connections to the other brands, but I didn't get the same type of attention that they gave to those other brands. So we want to be able to specialize in what factories work with, what businesses or entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so it's a bit of Match.com when it comes to creating the site and making it as accessible as possible and as exact as possible. So those are some of the things that we're still working on in terms of the matchmaking between the two parties.
Yeah. So we can go into Q&A if you want to.
Okay.
Are you guiding this? Okay.
Are you going to expand to other industries soon, or are you going to let this mature for a while?
Yeah, we're expanding into 6 new industries this year. Oh, yeah, the question was how many are, if we are expanding into other industries.
Can you shed some light on what they are, or is that still?
It's behind closed doors right now, yeah.
On that supply chain, are you going to also add on marketing?
So, are we going to add on marketing? No, because we are focused strictly on the manufacturing process right now.
I mean, let's say I have an idea, but I need help with marketing. So, is there like any sort of a marketing in the future?
Do you want to repeat the question first? And then
Yeah. Is there a space for marketing for small businesses? There's tons of companies that help with marketing online as well as print and stuff. There's tons of PR firms that specialize in working with small and medium-sized businesses. We wanted to focus on the making process, and because that's the beginning. So there's tons of sites out there for fundraising. You have Kickstarter, you have Etsy if you're doing stuff handmade, but where we see the sweet spot is manufacturing. So when people are looking to, once they have that hit, once they get a lot of great response from the community and they need to ramp up and not just do 10 to 20, they need to do over like 1,000 units. A lot of entrepreneurs get lost, and that's where a lot of businesses go under. But we wanted to be able to provide those channels of discovery for people to be able to scale their operations into large brands. Yep.
2 questions. What are the bigger brands that use your site, and how do you guys plan on monetizing? I mean, it's an awesome resource, and you guys put a lot of effort into it.
So the first question was, what big brands do we work with? And a number of those brands have spoken with us, and we do consultation with us, but within that, they ask us to keep their name private. And the second question?
I mean, with this, it's a great resource, so how do you guys plan on monetizing with your site? Is you get a cut of this, of like the batch runs, or?
So the awesome thing is that we wanted to make this free for you guys. We wanted to make this free for designers and entrepreneurs as well as small and medium-sized businesses to discover factories. We do have a subscription model for manufacturers, a monthly subscription. Yes?
So did you take any inspiration from existing directory services and what they list typically?
So
I know, for example, let's say Granger is huge in the United States, the catalog company for farm and equipment and machinery and so on. And obviously Alibaba in China. But, maybe you're right now focusing on clothing and accessory industry, correct?
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe from an IA perspective, I'm just curious, were you looking at other clothing and accessory listing providers to get an idea of like what type of things could be common for a business to list, and then you add, like you said, your own designer would want to look for?
Right. So
So, part of our decision-making process, I'll let you talk about the larger chunk, but a lot of our decision-making process came from our user testing too, prior to launching, and once we had a general profile and search up, we did user testing with our target demographics, which were small businesses and beginning designers, and so we incorporated their feedback into this as well. But
right. And as far as inspiration is concerned, if we got inspiration from other sites, yes, we've gotten inspiration from other sourcing sites as well as professors and students and small and medium-sized businesses. Their wish lists, we combined their wish lists with our wish lists and decide what are the most essential things, the most essential needs for both manufacturers to market their services as well as small businesses to discover those manufacturers in cultivating that whole formula. Yep.
Do you have a system for vetting manufacturers?
Yes, we do have a system for vetting right now, and that's also something that we keep private right now. Mm-hmm.
Do you, obviously there's a back end for the manufacturers. I don't know if that's something you can show us, because I'm sort of curious how the manufacturers manage their own information on the flyer. Is that something you're hard coding all the time?
yeah, I mean, the admin for the manufacturers is still something that we're working on. It is something that's fully functioning, and manufacturers are we're looking at the data on how quickly they're able to publish a profile, but we are working on optimizing the profile, so it's still definitely a work in progress, but it is fully functioning. So many manufacturers have published their own profiles from scratch once they found out about us and once we approved their profile. So what we did with that is still, we still have to test that thoroughly before finalizing it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm not a manufacturer, but if I was and I decided, these beginners are just too much trouble, I want to just go and uncheck that box. How easy is it for the manufacturer to alter their own language or their profile as they go along? Or do you even want them to do that?
Oh no,
Yeah.
absolutely. We want them to have complete control of over their profile, so that they don't have to call us or wait for us to reach them and really discuss things. They'll be able to make all the customization to their profiles on the fly. That's really important to us.
We've seen manufacturers subscribe and then upload their profile within a half hour.
And
So,
shoot videos on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of something that a lot of small businesses don't even realize that things are still manufactured here in the United States. So I think that there's a lot of discovery or rediscovery that small businesses are doing within American manufacturing today.
Tied into that, how many manufacturers did you have to find on your own, and then versus, I think you guys have had some really great press from Brooklyn Beta and different things like that. So did you have 10 signed up and then all of a sudden it blew up and now people are signing up on their own, or have you been doing a lot of legwork of tracking these people down and kind of introducing the site to them?
So it started initially by us approaching the manufacturers and suppliers that we were already using with Brooklyn Bakery, which was the leather brand. And they reached out, as soon as we told them the general idea of it, they said, we're on board. And as a matter of fact, let me call my friends, and they reached out to all their community, and it just spread like wildfire.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I was going to ask, what are the subscription rates for the manufacturers?
It's 50 for standard and 200 for premium. Yep. We're still playing with it right now.
Do you have a monthly newsletter as well that goes out to the manufacturers, and another one for potential people that are interested?
yeah, so this is the subscription for the newsletter. We do send out a separate one for manufacturers with updates to their admin or things like that.
I really like your site. I'm a designer, and it's been great. And I'll ask you other questions later. But just to know, how are you guys figuring out, who is using it? Because you list their contacts, and I can go separately and call these people who never mentioned Makers Row. How are you kind of figuring out who's getting matched?
A lot of it has been their feedback, so they're actually very vocal with the success stories that come from Makers Row. And so because whenever we bring a manufacturer business, it's very clear because they're interested in advertising more on Makers Row and adding more features to enhance their profiles. That's one way. Another way is we're able to track on a per user basis what goes on in the site.
Yes.
How long have you been live now?
Early November is when we launched. Yep.
It's about 4 months. And a couple of other things in terms of the interaction design. This 6-step process looks simple now, but it actually took quite a bit of time to simplify it into 6 steps. The actual making process is actually much longer and extensive. Matthew can speak more to it, but
It's just that we wanted to generalize the steps for newcomers as well as students to be able to follow the process, and based on whatever product you want to create, the different materials might vary, the sample making process will vary as well, but we wanted to generally categorize each step, and then as you search for whatever product you want to be creating, you can look on the manufacturer's profile and see specifically what the details of that particular step are.
And so what's interesting in that is because once we standardized that, it was interesting to see that the manufacturers and the designers caught on right away. Like they were categorizing themselves in the different steps and explaining the processes within that. And so that was a really interesting thing that we found in making the site.
So we're not making up the terms. The terms are used within every industry. So we just use the very general terms, and then you're able to go inside of different profiles based on your product. Yes?
What's the biggest challenge and surprise you guys had during the process of making it happen?
Well, I'll handle the first. The biggest surprise is that these manufacturers are using this platform in order to reach out to other material suppliers as well as manufacturers and expanding upon their community. And that's been the most pleasant surprise that we could have had. And problems, challenges. Simplifying, I would say, simplifying the making process. We debated and discussed exactly what steps we needed to put in and what things aren't as necessary as others, and that's why we broke it down into these 6. We felt like this was the essential 6 steps in order to take an idea to product.
Also, keeping up with the amount of inquiries, that's one of the reasons why we launched this discussion forum in order to, let's see how the internet, in order to allow designers to collaborate with other designers. We just launched this like 2 days ago, but we still have to send the email out to the manufacturers to start in there. But you can see that some manufacturers are responding to the inquiries already. And so that's been a very useful tool in terms of bringing the community together more. And also in order for us to be able to put in frequently asked questions and just refer, as in our process, refer them to this forum, and that way they're able to expand upon that or ask further questions.
And we also get a chance to see what are the major concerns of users, because there's a lot of stuff that we're adding on the daily, I would say, because we hear from different students as well as big brands, like, this is what I really need to find in there, and we've been adding and taking out and editing everything on the site. It's definitely a work in progress. Yes?
So you said you launched with 1,000 profiles that I guess you guys probably looked up a lot of those.
Yep.
And then now how many profiles are on there since November?
Right now there's 1,400. So 400 signed up on their own and claimed or edited and started their own profiles. And we also invited all of those 1,000 to claim their profiles as well. But we've really been focusing on increasing the quality of the profiles and making sure that they all have images, quality images, and further information. That's still something that we're working on.
I looked at you guys in the beginning and I've seen a huge difference, so
Oh, good.
congrats.
Well, that's good that it's a good
Yeah.
difference. Thanks.
Yeah, a big good difference.
Thanks. Any other questions? Guess we got it, Steve.
Yeah. Reception time.
Thank you guys so much for coming out. We really appreciate it.